Hello and welcome to another episode of Laravel Tips, Tricks and Packages, a useful video series where I show you some of the features and packages that you can use within Laravel. In this episode we're going to look at something called Blade filters, and what this does is it allows you to apply filters in your Blade files to your text strings. Now if you're coming from a different framework like Django in Python, or even a different templating engine in PHP such as Twig or Smarty, you'll already be familiar with the concept of filters. So if we just take a look at the example here on the website, you can see they put a pipe and then a filter of title and then a filter of truncate chars 10. So of course in Blade you can actually just call the PHP functions natively inside of the Blade curly braces, but I think the filters gives us a nice option and I think it looks a lot cleaner. And if you're coming from another framework or another front end package, then you'll probably be more familiar with this syntax anyway. Let's jump in and take a look at this. So here I've just got a very basic Laravel project with just some placeholder text in a Blade view. So the first thing we want to do is pull in that package into our Laravel application. So we want to do a composer require the pine code / blade -filters. And now we have that installed, we can start using it in our project. So most of the native PHP string functions there's already a filter built for them, so you can use them right out the box. So for example, there's a native function in PHP to lowercase the first letter. So let's call this on our title here at the top of our page. So after where we output our title here, we can then just pass in a pipe and we can pass the filter in LC first. Then back over in our application, when we give this a refresh, we can now see that filter is applied. So there are some other nice formatting ones like uppercase first, and there's also trim to remove excessive white space. We can also do a reverse on this string, and as you expect, that just flips the string and outputs it in reverse. And we can also call substring as a filter and get a section of the string. So like when calling a native function in PHP, it's a sub str and then a colon, and then we want to start from the first letter and we want to go up to the 9th character. And you can see now in our project that has just sliced the first 9 characters of the string and discarded the rest of it. There's also date filters which are quite handy. So over here in the card body, I'm just going to hard code a string here with a date. I'm just going to do the 5th of August 2020, and you'll notice here I'm using the British standard for writing the date, and we put the day first and then the month and then the year, but it doesn't matter too much. And then pipe, and then we can just pass it in a date. Now we could leave this as it is and let's take a look. You can see that just puts the hyphens in between, and it also uses the standard output for the PHP date function, which is year, day, month. But we can pass it in any string that the PHP date function can handle. So for example here we can do a colon and then enter a string. We can say print out the month, the full name of the month, and then the day, and then finally the year. Let's give this a refresh. You can see now that now prints out the full month, the day, and then the year. So some of the useful filters in this package are slug and title and studly, and this is something you'll come across common in Laravel. So these filters are built in for us to use out the box. So for example on the title, let's change this to a slug. You can see that put hyphens in between each of the letters in the string. We can also use title, and that simply uppercases the first letter of every word. And we can also use studly. As you can see, that uppercases the first letter of each word and removes all the spaces within the sentence. So you're probably thinking, yeah, the syntax is nice, but I can just do this in Blade anyway, maybe even with custom directives or calling the PHP functions natively. But I think one of the real powers of this package is you can chain the filters together. So for example, we can uppercase the first letter, and then if we just do a space and then another pipe, we can then apply another filter. So we could do a substring, and we want to start from the first character and we want to go 3 characters in. We can see it's applied the uppercase filter and it's also done a substring. And for me, this syntax is much easier to read rather than calling the PHP functions natively. Now, probably one of the most powerful features of this package is that you can create your own filters. So where you've got some logic in your view and you want to display text in a certain way, so you can actually create your own filter so you can reuse it multiple times across your project. So let's take a look at how we do this. So over under our app, under providers, and then let's open up App Service Provider. Now what I'd recommend is if you're doing this in a larger project where you've got multiple custom filters, then is to create a dedicated service provider for it. But for the purpose of this video, and if your application is quite small, then putting it in the App Service Provider is probably okay. So what you need to do in your boot function is call the Blade filters, and you want to call the macro. And it's also worth noting here, if you're using an IDE that doesn't automatically import, when you're bringing the Blade filters in here, you need to use at the top of your page, you need to use at the top of your file, Pine, Blade filters, Blade filters. And then inside the macro, we can just pass it a string that we want to call our filter. And I'm just going to call this my filter because I'm not very imaginative. And then as a second parameter, we just pass it a closure. So we can do a function. And then inside of this function is the parameters that we're going to pass into the filter. So I'm just going to give this a value, keep it nice and simple. And then we just simply return what we want to do to this value that's being passed in via the filter. I'm just going to return the result of the native PHP string to upper function. So that's an MB underscore STRTO upper. And then we just pass our value into that. And now over in our view file, we can use our new filter. So over in our title, let's just get rid of these for now. And we'll just call my filter. Then over in our application, we just give that a refresh. We can see our custom filter has been applied to our title and everything has been uppercased. Now obviously this is quite a basic example. Maybe you needed to do some complicated regex to alter the state of the string. You'll be able to do that here in your macro and then be able to use it everywhere in your application. But the logic all sits in one place, outside of your view files.